back to another episode of Talk to Tot. Real people, real talk, real life. I am your wonderful host, Tatiana Monet, coming with another important topic. And it is about something that people really weren't referencing before COVID. People were not, I would say, abusing the word and misrepresenting it to the degree that they are now. Like, even if you rewind before COVID, you would not have used this word commonly in conversation. And before I get to that, I just want to say I hope that y'all had an amazing week. I hope that you guys poured into yourselves. I hope that you guys practiced implementing your boundaries and categorizing people in your life the way that they need to be so that you are prioritized first and that you feel and receive the same love that you give out. So, aside from all of that, back to the topic, which is triggered. Are you really triggered or are you trying it? I say that because you find a lot of people now wanting to use this word as an excuse or as a scapegoat to give them the green light to be ignorant in response to something. Having a traumatic experience is nothing to play with. Let's just say that first. Mental health really matters, and having your emotions intact, regulating them, and being able to have a fortified mind, that takes a lot of effort if it's not something that isn't already in place. So for people who are in a certain stage of their healing process where they are more prone to emotionally responding in a negative way because something arouses their feelings while they're in distress, that is a genuine trigger. But just because somebody cut you off in traffic, or just because somebody was trying to get your attention and they waved their hand or tapped their foot. Now, I'm not saying that certain subtleties may not arouse someone's negative emotions and bring them back to that traumatic moment. But y'all really trying it. And I say that because two instances for my own personal experience that I'll share with you guys, and you'll be like, that person's not triggered. You just don't like that. That's not a trigger where something bad happened to you. That's a preference and you're misusing the word. Prime example. And y'all see how I just defined what a trigger was without saying. Google says, and just FYI for anyone who is watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Apple Podcasts, that is the definition of an emotional trigger, which is a sign of distress that arouses feelings from traumatic events or experiences. So, just to, shine a little light on the life coach in me, the certified life coach in me. First example. Man, when I tell y'all, okay, I was at work. Not that I just shooed my dog away. I didn't mean to do that. She was trying to talk to me, and I tend to talk with my hands. If you're like me, you're from up north, you're from Chicago, or any of those northern cities, we tend to talk with our hands a lot. And when we're doing that, that's not the time to be trying to touch our hands. It's like we trying to this is how help me get my words out. So she was getting in the way of my hands while I was talking, and I kind of shoot her away, and I was like, oh, she's just trying to be here, let me bring her back on. So if you can see her on the camera now, Layla is here, and if you're listening in, our little buddy is back in my lap, because she likes these talk to tot sessions as well. So the first example is I am in a meeting, and in this meeting, it's for one of the organizations I'm in. I tried to get someone's attention, and I did that by tapping my foot. I didn't say stump. I didn't say smack my leg. I literally tapped my toe at this person. Like, you try to do something on the sneak, like a psst kind of moment. That was that. And when I did that, the reaction that I got was this big explosion of emotion. don't do that to me. Like, just all this rah rah, right? When I tell y'all, I had to remember a lot of things in that moment. You got something to lose. You in DeKalb County, that police station, yeah, and you don't. It was a lot that I was thinking about in that moment, and I'm like, yo, who the hell you talking to? Who are you talking to? And to practice that restraint, which that'll be another episode that I do, is talking about constraint versus restraint. Yeah, putting people in that position, like when you are masking a trigger with just a preference and you're just acting out like a toddler, you are putting people in a mental state where they have to exercise a lot of restraint to not revert back to an older version of themselves that got them into certain situations that they no longer want to be in, because they have grown. They see that there's no point. Their energy does not deserve to go to that place. It doesn't mean that it can't. Let's just say that did not ever happen again. I'll say that. It did not cause for me to come out my character, but it didn't happen again. But the fact that I had to handle it a certain type of way and let that person know, under no circumstances is that remotely acceptable, and that will not happen again. There's no play in my voice, no jolly expression in my face. No, don't ever. And the second situation was, I was at work and I'm in the midst of training a group of people, and someone was trying to, sometimes when you're conducting a training, there are perks or incentives, and you're supposed to divide those perks or incentives amongst everyone else. And you always got that one or two people that ain't used to having nothing, or they just greedy or half raised, that want to try to get some before it's really open for everybody else. I don't like stuff like that. That rubs me the wrong way. And I also think it's something childish. Like, once you pass a certain age, you shouldn't do anything like that anymore, because it's like you know you're gonna get your turn and you're gonna get some. So whatever. Anyway, so this individual, without cleaning their hands or anything like that, because you're about to touch food, so you shouldn't just be digging into stuff and all of that. We didn't pray over it or nothing like that. You know what I mean? You're just so thirsty because your eyes are bigger than your actions. Yeah, so I flicked my hand a little bit, like, how you're trying to get someone's attention in a room without causing attention. So you kind of like flick, like you wave your hand or you shake your fingers a little bit towards them, like, hey, I tried to do something like that, where I extended my arm out and I flicked my hand like up and down a little bit, like, hey type of notion. And the response I got back from this person's child, because that wasn't an adult, that was someone's child, because that's how they acted. I'm gonna call it like I see it. I don't care what your ID says or your birth certificate. That little human said, don't ever do that. I don't like that. I don't like when people do that to me. That's a trigger when people do. Okay. You were about to reach your nasty hands into this unblessed food to partake in it before anybody else could get some, because you're thirsty. And it's a trigger that someone is trying to get your attention to tell you that notion is inappropriate and it's not your turn. But instead of you taking accountability because you were called out and you were wrong, you wanted to reduce the moment to it being about the gesture that was used to get your attention. See, this is the issue. Slight tangent. These young teeny boppers and 20-somethings can sometimes be stunted in their communication skills and their social interactions, partly due to the fact that they didn't play outside like that. So they didn't have that outside childhood experience. They don't even know what outside smells like. Outside is actually a smell. And if you know, you know. Also, being behind a technological screen so much to where that influence navigates your lifestyle, it takes away from how you interpret mannerisms, body language, diction, tone, all of those things. So they're stunted. And AI can't AI can tell you something, but it can't show you in that degree of just dealing with different types of people. At least not yet, and that's a whole nother thing. That's some iRobot stuff. But anyway, I said all that to say this person's child decided to use the word trigger because someone was extending their arm to them and waving it in a motion that brought them trauma. Let me tell you why that's a farce. Just a few moments before that, baby girl was twerking down and hands was all over in her face by other people. Arms were extended, wrists were waving. So all of a sudden, now that you're sitting in a more serious tone, now you're triggered by the same action. Okay. Obviously, you don't know decorum. If you're trying to get someone's attention, you don't just, hey, when you're in a more formal or professional setting, you use nonverbal cues, body language. So, are you really triggered? And I hope that you guys are not hearing my alerts as I go through this episode. I'm actually going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb really quickly because I know that sound is very annoying and it's actually, to me, a little ghetto. I don't like that at all. Anyway, so we shouldn't have that problem anymore. Yes, so that was as of late because I was going to do another topic, but because I had those experiences as of late, I wanted to push this topic further up on the line to talk about because I really think that it is emotionally irresponsible, disrespectful, and ignorant to misuse the word trigger and to make everything about being triggered to play to your emotional weaknesses. Grow up. Not everything is a trigger. Or just because you're being held accountable, you're being called out, however you want to describe that, now all of a sudden it's a trigger. And putting people in positions to have to deal with you a certain type of way, because when you hear I'm triggered, and people like me who have some type of training or a certification or a background in things that affect the mind or the body, our responses have to be different. It can't just be, oh, like I can't meet you with the same level of ignorance. I have to respond with the mindset of a professional, someone who has a certain level of experience, criteria, and skill set to be able to help you and provide assistance. I waved my hand. There's no assistance you're getting from me with that. I tap my toe. There's no assistance you're getting from me with that. But you're making it about that. There are people out there. Like, for instance, let's just talk about dogs. You don't, when you approach a dog, especially a dog that you're unfamiliar with, you don't just, unless you're doing something like with training or whatever, but you don't just walk up to a dog and just put your hand right over their head. If you're a dog person or animal person, you know that. You don't just raise your hand above a dog's head because some dogs, either instinctively or through training, look at that as a sign of threat or disrespect or aggression, whatever. So that is a trigger because it prompts or arouses a feeling of distress based off of some type of traumatic response where they need to defend themselves or they were in a position where they couldn't defend themselves and something happened. Instead of following the fad of using certain words, educate yourself on them. Look up what a trigger is. And if you know that that's not what it is, stop using it. Expound upon your vernacular. Don't perpetuate that ignorance. Not only is it not cute, but you're going to come across the right person at the wrong time who don't care about having restraint, emotional regulation, etc. And it won't be a good experience for you. It won't. And sometimes people like that have to learn like that. But what I was going to say was stop putting people in positions where they have to exercise restraint so that they don't give you an emotional or physical response that you won't be able to handle, because you won't be able to handle it. Just because someone smiles, walks away, or just makes a comment like, all right, whatever, mm-mm. That doesn't mean that they're a punk. That doesn't mean that you scored a point. It doesn't mean any of those things. It literally means that person knows themselves enough to know they're not in the mood to go to jail today. They're not in the mood to drag you and whoop your tail. They're not in the mood to break your face, to destroy your property. I when I tell you, people crazy out here, crazy and cool with it. But it takes a lot of, okay, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and they said, I experienced so much violence that I deserve and protect my peace. Yeah, that's a real thing. When you have been through a lot and you've seen where your temper can go, you have to do things like talk to yourself or walk away or hold your hands. Like, I know for a fact when I'm starting to get upset, I do a number of things depending on what is upsetting me and what degree of viscosity I have reached. I either hold my hands together. Like, when I start holding my hands together, it's because I'm about to use them. So I'm holding them because I need to make physical contact with something that I don't have to pay for. And I'm not being funny. I won't have to pay for it. I did not damage it, but I can squeeze my hands as tight as I can and I'm holding them together. But it's also allowing me to release the urge to make physical contact with something instead of someone's face. So I hold my hands together. What I also do, and these are things that other people may be familiar with as I'm speaking them. So when you see people doing these things, this is not the moment for you to egg them on. Because what comes after that, once you unlock the cage, once you poke that bear again, it's over with for you. It's over with for you. It don't matter if you're significantly taller than this person. It doesn't matter if you are bigger in weight than this person. It doesn't matter what your belief system is. People are crazy and they will hurt you if you push them to that point. Don't push them. This is not a challenge. This is not a quest. This is a recipe for disaster and you will not be okay. Leave people alone. That's a trigger for them. How about that? That's a trigger for them. Another thing that I do besides clapping my hands together and holding them, I talk to myself literally. And some of these things that I am saying, when you look into emotional regulation and self-governance and just making sure that you are practicing proper emotional health techniques, you're going to see some of the things that I'm saying, whether they have more technical terms or not. So by me talking to myself, I am literally having a conversation. A lot of times a calm conversation can de-escalate something. So even if another person is not present, the Lord is. And whatever else in my head, everybody got like a alter ego or something like that. So whoever I'm affiliated with, or the left side of the brain is talking to the right side, how about that? Whatever, or vice versa. I'm literally thinking out loud and I'm saying, walk away, this person is this, it, blah, blah, blah. Like, but this is my last time. So let me da da da. Like, speaking my intentions. That just goes back to like affirmations and pouring into yourself. You say it out loud. Besides writing them, you say it out loud. It's the same thing when you're trying to calm your emotions down and de-escalate a situation, because now you have been triggered by someone with a false trigger because they're trying it. They're not triggered, they're trying it. Another thing that I do is I literally create space. I've had to do that a plethora of times working in property management, where someone is just talking out the side of their neck, man. Like, it is what it is. People do that. Some people are really good at being ignorant, and I'm now starting to let people be good at what they're good at without it impacting me. I'm finding ways to allow that to exist without it merging into my situation in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And it's starting to work for me, because I don't care what you do. You still finna do you and be you regardless. But it doesn't have to have anything to do with me, and I don't have to let it impact me. I have that power. You can't take it from me. And I'm not gonna give it to you. So I literally create space where if people are doing all this hooping and hollering, or if they advance towards me, I literally am using body language. I put my hand out in front of me, like in a stop motion. And a lot of times I will actually take a step or two back, like, and I said, as I'm still talking, and I create distance, because a lot of times that, like, okay, when you are watching boxing and they are having the two boxers stand, like, come up to each other and stand off to face each other off and stuff like that, that closeness, that proximity to that tension helps amplify that tension. It's like the closer you get to an enraged animal, it gets even more hyped up because it's feeding off of it. So by you creating distance, by me creating distance, it allows that tension to no longer be fuel, and it will dissipate the energy, the experience. So those are things that I do, because a lot of times you can't just hop on the phone and be like, yo, somebody tried it today. And yeah, because not all the time people are available on the phone. So I say that to say, if you are the type of person that you're using the word trigger as, and you probably won't admit it, that's fine. You're not ready yet. But if you're misusing this word, or you've been using it without going to therapy or anything like that, just to describe how you don't like that people do certain things, and it's really not connected to any trauma at all, please stop doing it. You're trying it. You're not triggered. You're trying it. And it shows your lack of intelligence and awareness and people skills and self-development skills, because you're leaning on an invisible crutch. Really, it's you are abusing something and using it under false pretenses, but you still demand and expect respect and for people to honor what you're putting out. Does that make any sense to you? That's just like something that, and I don't want to list it because I don't want to give people ideas, but something that's just morally wrong. Whatever pops into your head when I just said that, something morally wrong that 9 times out of 10, the common person is going to be like, that's a no, that's nasty, that's wrong, that's inappropriate. Okay, that in your mind. Let's say someone is an advocate for that very thing, and they're like, yeah, I love this, I'm team this. And you'll be like, what? Why would you defend that? Why do you think that that's okay? Same concept. Same concept. Find other words to describe how you feel. You owe it to yourself to research and discover how you feel and how to explain those feelings, so that way people can meet you where you're at if they choose to. You can't force that though. You can't force people just because you saying certain words and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that you're guaranteed the responses that you like to receive. Especially if a person is in the middle of their own traumatic experience or whatever. I mean, a lot of us are walking around here phasing in and out of things. And they're not going to always run parallel with someone else's situations, and that's perfectly okay. We're human in our healing, and there's no time frame or layout for how that needs to go, because it adjusts based on each individual person. But you still have to live among them, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. This world is not about you individually. Your world is about you. Absolutely. Frolic in your world. Do whatever you please. But while you're living, not but, as you're living amongst everyone else, especially when, because I can't stand when people say, I don't need nobody, I don't care what people say, nothing like that. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You have to. Because for one, you have to care what an employer thinks if you want a job, if you're not self-employed. You have to care about what your significant other thinks if you don't want to be lonely. You have to care about what your family thinks if you want them to interact with you and support you. You have to care about what your friends think if you want them to deal with you. So yeah, you do. Even these strangers on the street, you don't want to tick off the wrong person and they end your life over something stupid, like a traffic situation, like buying a pair of shoes, like breaking up with somebody. Side note, you want to talk about triggers? The case that just happened in Kennesaw, Georgia, where the young man shot his girlfriend. I don't know if she was an ex at the time, whatever, but I know that they had been dating or affiliated with one another since middle school, and she was in college. This man shot her in the face. She got shot in the face 15 times. 15 times on campus. When you want to talk about triggers, first of all, there's two types of triggers there. He was trigger happy, and whatever happened in his mind triggered this singular massacre. So when you want to talk about triggered, trauma is nothing to play with. Does that mean, I'm not defending what this young man did at all. I'm just saying when someone is really traumatized or triggered by something, it puts them in, it's almost like a trance, like a controlled trance. It puts you in this mental state where whatever you would normally do, there's no guarantee that your mind is going to commit to that. Irrationality can come into play. Impulsivity can come into play because your mind unhinges. It goes back to that moment. It reverts to when that catastrophe happened, and how your body chooses to respond. There is no guarantee. That's the weight that stuff like that carries. So, and it can have other effects too. I've had people in my life that were so emotionally triggered that they commit suicide. I have people that are so emotionally triggered they attempt suicide, or they go on some type of binge, whether that is drinking, smoking, overeating, buying too many things, like whatever it is, where they take a situation and they overdo it. They abuse it, stretch it out too much, and their rationalization and limit and self-control is compromised. Those things come into play when you're talking about being triggered from a trauma, not someone tapping a toe. Because when you at work, on the street, in the club, people tapping toes. People are dangling and shaking hands. So just think about what you say before it come out your mouth. My late father would always tell me that think before you speak. Mean what you say and say what you mean. But if it sounds stupid, don't defend that just for your pride. Your pride can get you hurt real bad. Real bad. Nah. And that's not a good space that you want to be in. If you really are traumatized about something, do something about it. Don't just allow that to be something that you choose to revisit over and over, and you don't do anything. You don't heal. You don't have any closure. If it's something that can be healed at this time, because there is a time and a place for everything. The choice is yours, and that is your power. That's your superpower. You have the choice to no longer remain triggered by something, and that can happen in a number of ways. As far as how you take advantage of those opportunities, you can seek therapy or a life coach. You can pour into your hobbies that make you happy. You can submerge yourself into nature. You can whatever that looks like for you, but commit to that, because the world is not here to be your footstool for your foolishness. Because you got, just like how you say you got all these problems, it's people out there that are willing to no longer have you go through all of that, because you ain't waking up no more. You ain't got nothing else to lose because you're not even here. You got some people that will stalk you and follow you and continuously try to provide pain simply because you did that one thing to them. You have people out here like that. They will not stop. Did y'all see that movie? It had Russell Crowe in it. It was, I don't know if it was called Road Rage or whatever, but it had Russell Crowe in it, and it's the older Russell Crowe because he got a little more love on his body. I love me some Russell. And just from that lady honking and flicking him off on the road, he followed her for the entire day. And beyond him just following her, he damaged her car. He killed her best friend. If he didn't kill her brother and his girlfriend, he definitely hurt them pretty bad. But she lost like 2 or 3 people in her life because of him, all in one day, because she honked at him and flicked him off. Yeah. Go find some healing. Have some sit down. Because you manipulative, and I like to use that word every now and then because I like Tyler Perry's stuff. And Mr. Brown on one of the plays was like, you manipulated me. So instead of saying manipulated, to add a little bit of comedic relief, sometimes as of lately I've been saying, you manipulated me. So don't manipulate a situation by confusing a trigger from a traumatic experience with you just trying to have your way in this moment. Just own up to what you did, or be like, hey, I ain't like that you did that. I don't prefer that people do that to me. You're entitled to your preferences, and you're in control of how you communicate those preferences. But just be mindful, not even but, be mindful. The world don't know your preferences. A lot of the world don't care about your preferences either. But how you communicate your intentions and your expectation of how you want people to treat you, which you also have to be ready to reciprocate, you have to express that in a way where people are receptive to what you're saying. Learn that skill. Learn that like yesterday. It's very important. So that I'm not rambling, I really needed to share that with you guys, because it is, if you just, I like to people watch, study individuals, and if you are like that, like me, or if you can just read a person, like you don't really have to people watch, but you just had experiences, and you've come across people like this, I'm sure you can relate to this content. Be like, yeah, people do that. That's just so dumb. It's ignorant. It's inconsiderate. It's just like, why did you even have time to dedicate to that? It just go find something else to do. That I can find you some stuff to do. just be a better version of yourself. Realize that you do have to live amongst the rest of us humans here in this world. You have to assimilate to a certain degree. You do. You do, whether you like it or not. If not, go on a remote island somewhere and whatever. And who's to say you won't come across some natives or aboriginals or whatever, and you got to still assimilate because they don't know you. You foreign still, whatever. Either way, you are not. You might be singular, but you're not so solitary in this world where your lack of consideration for those around you is something that you should consistently defend, especially if it's under false pretenses and the misuse of a concept to fit your own reality. Unacceptable. Do better. Grow up. Especially for those of you that are in your 20s or younger, because the older you get, just live a little. Keep living. That's what people would say to me when I had to experience certain learning curves in my life. They said, just keep living. You're going to see. Because if you don't take heed to someone's words, life going to show you. And it will. Trust me, boo-boo. Whether you like it or not. So, that concludes this week's episode of Talk to Tot, Real People, Real Talk, Real Life. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope that if this video or episode rather, if it did speak to you, comment on it. I would like to hear your thoughts. If you have any additional information that you would like to add, or if you would like to be a guest on the show, please let me know. We do have some exciting guests and experiences coming up as I plan some of these out, especially because the weather is getting hotter now, and I'm mapping out some things that I want to do that I want you guys to be able to experience with me as we have these in-depth conversations. But yes, get the help you need. Find a therapist, find a friend, find a hobby, whatever you need to do. Find yourself, all of the above. Talk to God or whatever your belief system is, and do it and stick with it. Until then, I will see you guys. Like, follow, subscribe. Follow me on TikTok at Tatiana_Monet. Follow me on Instagram at Tatiana Monet. You can follow the podcast Instagram at _talk to tot. And you can also catch this episode streaming on Apple Podcasts, the audio version, or seeing my lovely face in my humble abode on YouTube. I look forward to the next episode with you guys. And again, I will see you later. Continue to do things in love and light. Have a good one.